The sound of our bedroom door slamming shut echoed through the Victorian house like a gunshot. I stood there in the hallway, holding a cup of lukewarm coffee, watching the brass doorknob turn with that deliberate click that meant business. Serious business. "Eli!" Jessa's voice carried through the heavy oak door. "I need space to think. Go downstairs or something." I took a sip of coffee and considered my options. After 12 years of marriage, I knew that tone. It was the same one she used when firing people at her tech company, cold, calculated, final. The kind of voice that meant someone's world was about to change, and not for the better. "What are you thinking about in there?" I called back, keeping my voice light. No point in escalating whatever drama was brewing in her perfectly organized mind. "Us," came the reply. "I'm making a list." A list. Of course she was. Jessa March, Director of Human Resources at Coastal Tech Solutions, lived her entire existence through spreadsheets, bullet points, and color-coded organizational systems. She probably had a list for her lists. I heard papers rustling, the scratch of her expensive pen against paper. The same pen I'd bought her for our anniversary last year. A Mont Blanc that cost more than most people's car payments. She'd kissed me when I gave it to her, told me I was thoughtful. Now she was using it to dissect our marriage like a biology student with a frog. "What kind of list?" I asked, though part of me already knew. "Pros and cons," she said, and I could picture her sitting cross-legged on our king-sized bed, her blonde hair pulled back in that severe ponytail she wore when she meant business. About whether this marriage is worth saving. The coffee suddenly tasted like ash in my mouth. I set the cup down on the hallway table, next to the framed photo of us from our honeymoon in Ireland. We looked so young, so happy, so naive. "And you need me out of the room for this?" "I need objectivity," she said. "Your presence would skew the data." Data. She was talking about our marriage like it was a quarterly report. I walked downstairs to my office, a converted study that still smelled like the pipe tobacco the previous owner used to smoke. My laptop sat open on the antique desk, cursor blinking on a half-finished article about property management trends. Riveting stuff. The kind of hard-hitting journalism that had made me a household name in exactly 0 households. But as I sat there, listening to the old house creak and settle around me, something shifted in my chest. Not panic. I was past panic. Not even anger, really. More like clarity. The kind of sharp, cold clarity that comes when you finally stop pretending everything is fine. I pulled out a sheet of paper from the printer tray, picked up a pen. At the top, I wrote "Pros and cons of my marriage" in block letters. Under pros, I left it blank. Under cons, I wrote one word in capital letters: liar. I folded the paper neatly and walked back upstairs. The bedroom door was still closed, but I could hear Jessa moving around inside, probably organizing her thoughts into neat columns. I slipped my paper under the door and went back to my office. 20 minutes later, the screaming started. "Eliot March, what the hell is this?" I smiled for the first time in weeks. "Just contributing to your research, dear. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories." The door flew open, and Jessa stormed down the stairs, her face flushed red, my paper crumpled in her fist. She wore her favorite silk pajamas, the ones that cost more than most people's monthly grocery budget. "You think I'm a liar?" She waved the paper at me like evidence in a courtroom. I leaned back in my chair, studying her face. The way her left eye twitched when she was caught off guard. The way she unconsciously touched her throat when she felt defensive. After 12 years, I could read her tells better than a poker player. "I think," I said carefully, "that you've been acting strange lately. Coming home late, taking phone calls in the other room, deleting your browser history." "I delete my browser history for privacy." "From your husband?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. For a moment, something flickered across her face. Guilt, maybe, or fear. Then the mask slipped back into place. "This is exactly why I need to make this list," she said. "You're paranoid. Suspicious. It's exhausting. Then maybe you should add that to the cons column." She stared at me for a long moment, and I saw something I'd never seen before in her eyes. Not love, not even anger. Just calculation. Like she was running numbers in her head, figuring out the most efficient way to dispose of an underperforming asset. "Maybe I will," she said quietly. She turned and walked back upstairs, leaving me alone with the pipe tobacco smell and the growing certainty that my marriage wasn't the only thing about to change. That night, after Jessa had gone to her yoga class, or wherever she actually went on Tuesday evenings, I found myself standing in our bedroom, looking at her purse, a small, designer thing that probably cost more than my first car. She'd left it on the dresser, right next to her jewelry box and the collection of expensive perfumes she never seemed to wear anymore. I'm not proud of what I did next, but I'm not ashamed of it either. When someone starts making lists about whether your marriage is worth saving, all bets are off. The purse contained the usual suspects: wallet, keys, lip gloss, breath mints, but tucked into a side pocket, wrapped in a silk scarf like some kind of treasure, was a phone I'd never seen before. A cheap, prepaid flip phone, the kind people buy when they don't want their conversations traced. My hands shook as I opened it. The text history was extensive, dozens of messages going back 3 months, all to and from the same number, saved under the contact name C. The messages started innocent enough. "Thanks for coffee. Great meeting today. Looking forward to working with you." But they got progressively more intimate, more detailed, more explicit. I sat down heavily on the bed, scrolling through months of my wife's secret relationship, photos, plans, promises, a whole other life I knew nothing about. The most recent message was from earlier that evening. "Can't wait to see you Thursday, the usual place. Wear the red dress, you know how crazy it makes me." Thursday, tomorrow. I put the phone back exactly where I found it, wrapped in its silk scarf like a sleeping snake. Then I went downstairs to my office and opened a new document on my laptop. At the top, I typed, "The pros and cons of revenge." Under pros, I started writing. Wednesday morning arrived gray and drizzly, typical Maine weather that matched my mood perfectly. Jessa had already left for work by the time I stumbled into the kitchen, but she'd left her coffee cup in the sink, a small act of domestic thoughtlessness that would have annoyed me yesterday. Today, it felt like evidence. I'd spent most of the night planning, and the first rule of any good investigation is simple: know your enemy. In this case, I needed to know who C was and exactly how deep this rabbit hole went. The beauty of being married to someone for 12 years is that you know all their passwords. Jessa used the same basic formula for everything: our wedding date, plus the name of whatever pet she'd had as a child. She thought she was being clever by changing the pet name every few months, but she'd cycle through the same 5 animals: Whiskers, Fluffy, Princess, Snowball, and Mittens. Her laptop sat open on the kitchen counter, still logged into her email. I felt a brief pang of guilt as I scrolled through her messages. This was a violation of privacy, the kind of thing that would make me the bad guy in any normal marriage. But normal marriages don't involve secret phones and mysterious Thursday meetings. Most of her emails were work-related garbage, budget reports, meeting invitations, corporate buzzword bingo. But buried in her personal folder, I found what I was looking for. Caleb Rains, business consultant, specializing in organizational optimization and human resource efficiency. His email signature included a photo, mid-40s, silver hair, the kind of practiced smile that probably worked well on desperate housewives and corporate executives. The email chain between them went back 4 months. It started professional. He'd been hired to consult on some efficiency project at her company. But somewhere around the 6-week mark, the tone shifted. Lunch meetings became dinner meetings, business discussions became personal conversations, and then, about 3 months ago, they moved their communication off company email entirely. I printed out the relevant emails and tucked them into a folder. Then I did something that would have seemed paranoid a week ago, but now felt like basic survival. I installed a keylogger on her laptop, a simple program that would track every keystroke, every website visit, every password she entered. If Jessa wanted to play spy games, I could play too. My next stop was the Lobster Trap, a dive bar downtown where my old journalism buddy Benji worked as a bartender. The place smelled like stale beer and broken dreams, which made it perfect for my current mood. "Eli," Benji called out as I walked in. "Little early for drowning your sorrows, isn't it?" "Not drowning," I said, sliding onto a bar stool. Research. Benji was one of those guys who knew everyone in town and remembered everything. In our newspaper days, he'd been our best source for local gossip and political dirt. Now he served drinks to the same people he used to investigate. "What kind of research?" He poured me a coffee without asking. "You look like hell, by the way." "Thanks. I need to know about someone. Business consultant named Caleb Rains." Benji's expression shifted slightly. "Tall guy? Silver hair? Thinks he's God's gift to womankind?" "That's the one." "What do you want to know?" "Everything." Benji glanced around the empty bar, then leaned across the counter. "He's been in town about 6 months, rents a condo in Harbor View, expensive place, all glass and chrome, drives a silver Audi that costs more than I make in 2 years. What's his story?" "Claims to be some hotshot consultant from Boston, helps companies streamline their human resources." Benji made air quotes. "But word is, he's got a pattern. Shows up in small towns, targets married women in management positions, usually wives of guys who aren't paying enough attention." The coffee turned sour in my stomach. "You're saying he's done this before?" "I'm saying he's got a type. And from what I hear, he's very good at what he does." I thought about Jessa's late nights, her new clothes, the way she'd started going to the gym more often, all those little changes I'd attributed to a midlife crisis or work stress. "There's something else," Benji said quietly. "Maya Chen. You know, that social climber who runs the book club? She's been in here a few times, talking about how she's helping her friend with some kind of situation. Never mention names, but the timing fits. Maya. Jessa's best friend since college, the kind of woman who treated other people's drama like entertainment. If she was involved, this thing was bigger than just an affair. Thanks, Benj. I owe you one. You owe me several, but who's counting? I spent the rest of the afternoon conducting surveillance from the most boring location possible, the parking lot of Jessa's office building. I'd brought a newspaper and a thermos of coffee, playing the part of a bored husband waiting to pick up his wife. The Coastal Tech building was all glass and steel, the kind of modern architecture that was supposed to inspire innovation, but mostly just looked cold. I could see into the open-plan office space where Jessa worked, watching her move between cubicles like a shark patrolling its territory. At 3:47 p.m., a silver Audi pulled into the parking lot. Caleb Rains stepped out of the car like he was auditioning for a cologne commercial. Expensive suit, confident stride, the kind of presence that probably made insecure women feel special. He walked into the building like he owned it. I waited. 20 minutes later, Jessa appeared at one of the windows. She was talking to someone I couldn't see, but her body language was different, more animated, more alive than I'd seen her in months. She touched her hair, smiled, leaned forward slightly. Then Caleb moved into view. Even from across the parking lot, I could see the chemistry between them. The way they stood just a little too close. The way she laughed at something he said. The way he touched her arm when making a point. I took photos with my phone, feeling like a private detective in a bad movie. But the evidence was right there in front of me. My wife of 12 years, flirting with another man in full view of her coworkers. They talked for another 10 minutes, then Caleb left. As his Audi pulled out of the parking lot, he looked directly at me through my windshield. For a moment, our eyes met. He smiled and waved. The arrogant bastard knew exactly who I was. That evening, Jessa came home with takeout from our favorite Thai restaurant, an obvious peace offering after our fight the night before. She chatted about her day, asked about my work, acted like the perfect wife. But I noticed she kept checking her phone. "How's your list coming?" I asked over pad thai. "Still working on it," she said. "It's more complicated than I thought." Most important decisions are. She looked at me across the dining room table, and for a moment I saw a flicker of the woman I'd married, the one who used to laugh at my jokes and steal bites of my dessert and fall asleep reading mystery novels. "Eli," she said softly, "are you happy?" The question caught me off guard. "What do you mean?" "I mean, if you could change anything about your life, what would it be?" I thought about the honest answer. I'd change the fact that my wife was having an affair with a smooth-talking consultant who probably saw her as just another conquest. I'd change the fact that she was planning to leave me and thought I was too stupid to figure it out. Instead, I said, I'd want us to be honest with each other. Something shifted in her expression. Guilt, maybe, or fear. "We are honest," she said. "Are we?" She looked down at her plate, pushing noodles around with her fork. "I think we tell each other what we think the other person wants to hear. And what do you think I want to hear? That everything is fine, that we're happy, that we'll figure it out." I reached across the table and took her hand. Her wedding ring felt loose on her finger. She'd lost weight recently, another change I'd noticed but hadn't questioned. "What if I told you that I already know everything isn't fine?" Her eyes snapped up to meet mine. "What do you mean?" "I mean, maybe we should stop pretending." For a moment, I thought she might confess. Tell me about Caleb, about the secret phone, about whatever plan she and Maya had cooked up. Give us a chance to work through this like adults. Instead, she pulled her hand away. "I need to finish my list," she said. After she went upstairs, I sat in the kitchen staring at the takeout containers and thinking about tomorrow. Thursday. The day she'd promised to wear the red dress for another man. I opened my laptop and checked the keylogger. Jessa had been busy. 17 different websites, including one that made my stomach drop. A divorce attorney's homepage. She'd spent 43 minutes reading about Maine's divorce laws, property division, and spousal support. She wasn't just having an affair, she was planning her exit strategy. I closed the laptop and walked to the window, looking out at our neighbor's house. Mrs. Pretty was in her front yard, watering her flowers with a glass of wine in her other hand. She waved when she saw me. Mrs. Pretty had lived next door for 30 years. She knew everything that happened on our street, mostly because she spent her retirement watching the neighborhood like it was her personal soap opera. I waved back and made a mental note. If Jessa was planning something, Mrs. Pretty would be the first to notice. The game was just getting started. Thursday morning, Jessa spent an unusual amount of time getting ready for work. I listened from the kitchen as she showered, blow-dried her hair, and rummaged through her closet with the intensity of someone preparing for battle. When she finally came downstairs, she was wearing the red dress. It was a stunning piece. Silk, fitted, the color of fresh roses. I'd bought it for her birthday 2 years ago, and she'd worn it exactly twice. Once to a company party, once to dinner with my parents. Both times I'd told her she looked beautiful. Both times she'd seemed uncomfortable with the attention. Today, she wore it like armor. "Big presentation?" I asked, not looking up from my newspaper. "Something like that." She poured coffee into a travel mug, her movements quick and nervous. "I might be late tonight. Team dinner after the meeting." "With the consultants?" Her hand froze halfway to the coffee pot. "How did you know about the consultants?" "You mentioned it last week, the efficiency project." "Right." She relaxed slightly. Yes, with the consultants. I folded the newspaper and looked at her directly. You look beautiful. The compliment seemed to startle her. She touched her hair self-consciously, and for a moment she looked like the woman I'd married. Uncertain, hopeful, real. Thank you, she said softly. Whoever you're trying to impress is going to be very impressed. Her face went pale. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. Just that you look like you're dressed to make an impression. She stared at me for a long moment, searching my face for hidden meaning. I kept my expression neutral, curious but not suspicious, just a husband complimenting his wife. I should go, she said finally. After she left, I called in sick to work. Property management could survive a day without me analyzing rental trends and tenant complaints. I had more important business to attend to. The keylogger had captured Jessa's activity from the night before. She'd visited the divorce attorney's website again, this time filling out a contact form. She'd also spent time on a real estate site, looking at apartments in Portland, expensive one-bedrooms with city views and modern amenities. But the most interesting discovery was an email draft she'd started but never sent. See, I think he knows something. He's been asking questions, acting strange. Maybe we should wait. Be more careful. I don't want him to make this harder than it has to be. J. She'd typed it at 11:47 p.m., then deleted it without sending. So she was getting nervous. Good. Nervous people make mistakes. I spent the morning setting up my own surveillance network. The old flip phone I'd bought years ago for emergencies became a tracking device, hidden in the spare tire compartment of Jessa's car. A small digital recorder went under her desk in our home office, and I programmed my laptop to automatically screenshot her computer activity every 30 seconds when she was logged in. If she wanted to play spy games, I'd show her what real spying looked like. At 2:30 p.m., I positioned myself at a coffee shop across from Harbor View condos. The building was exactly what Benji had described, all glass and chrome, the kind of place that screamed expensive from every angle. Caleb's silver Audi was parked in the visitors section. At 3:15, Jessa's car pulled into the lot. I watched through the coffee shop window as my wife of 12 years walked into another man's building. She moved quickly, head down, like she was afraid someone might see her. Which, of course, someone had. I ordered another coffee and settled in to wait. They were together for 2 hours and 17 minutes. When Jessa finally emerged, her hair was mussed and her lipstick was gone. The red dress was wrinkled. She walked to her car like someone in a daze, checking her phone constantly. Caleb appeared at his balcony window as she drove away. He stood there in a white shirt, sleeves rolled up, looking satisfied with himself. When he saw me in the coffee shop window, he raised his coffee mug in a mock toast. The arrogant bastard was taunting me. That evening, Jessa came home at her usual time, having clearly stopped somewhere to fix her appearance. Her story about the team dinner was elaborate and detailed, the kind of over-explanation that guilty people always give. "How was your presentation?" I asked. "Good. Really good. The consultants were impressed with our efficiency metrics." "That's great. Which restaurant did you go to?" "Giuseppe's. You know, that Italian place downtown." I nodded sympathetically. Giuseppe's had been closed for renovations for 3 weeks. I'd driven past it that morning just to be sure. "Did you have the seafood special? I know how much you love their scallops." "Actually, I had the chicken. Wasn't feeling very adventurous." She was digging herself deeper with every lie. Part of me felt sorry for her. She'd never been good at deception. But a bigger part of me was furious at how stupid she thought I was. "I'm exhausted," she said. "I think I'll take a bath and go to bed early." "Good idea. You've had a long day." While she soaked in the tub, I checked the tracking device in her car. The GPS history showed exactly what I'd expected. Her office, Harbor View condos, a quick stop at a drugstore, then home. No Giuseppe's, no team dinner. Just lies layered on top of more lies. I was sitting in my office when she came downstairs in her robe, hair wrapped in a towel. Eli? She stood in the doorway, looking uncertain. Can we talk? Of course. She sat down in the chair across from my desk, the same chair where she used to sit when we'd plan vacations or discuss household budgets, back when we were partners instead of adversaries. I've been thinking about what you said yesterday, about being honest with each other. My pulse quickened. Okay. I think we've grown apart. Over the years, we've become roommates instead of spouses. That happens to a lot of couples. But it doesn't have to be permanent, does it? People can change. Relationships can be repaired. I studied her face, looking for signs of genuine remorse. What I saw instead was calculation. She was testing me, trying to figure out how much I knew and how much I was willing to forgive. They can, I agreed, if both people are committed to honesty. What if someone had made mistakes? Hypothetically. What if they'd done things they regretted but wanted to make it right? Hypothetically? Yes. I leaned back in my chair, considering my words carefully. I think it would depend on the mistakes, and whether the person was truly sorry or just sorry they got caught. She flinched slightly. How would you tell the difference? Actions. Sorry people confess. Sorry people make amends. Sorry people cut off contact with whatever led them astray in the first place. She was quiet for a long moment, staring at her hands. I could almost see the gears turning in her head, weighing options, calculating risks, trying to determine the least damaging path forward. What if the person needed time to figure out how to make things right? How much time? I don't know. A few weeks, maybe. A few weeks? Just long enough to finalize her divorce consultation and find an apartment. Just long enough to make sure Caleb was serious about whatever promises he'd made. I think, I said carefully, that some mistakes get worse with time, like infections. The longer you wait to treat them, the more damage they do. She looked up at me then, and I saw something that might have been genuine regret, or maybe just fear. I should let you work, she said, standing up. Thank you for listening. Any time. She paused at the doorway. Eli, do you still love me? The question hung in the air between us like smoke. 6 months ago, I would have answered without hesitation. Yes, of course. Always and forever. But 6 months ago, I didn't know about secret phones and red dresses and silver Audis. I love the woman I married, I said finally. I'm just not sure where she went. Jessa's face crumpled slightly, and for a moment, I thought she might break down and tell me everything. Instead, she nodded once and went upstairs. I sat in my office for another hour, staring at the computer screen and thinking about hypothetical mistakes and the difference between being sorry and being caught. Outside, Mrs. Pretty was taking her evening walk around the block, wine glass in hand, observing the neighborhood drama with the dedication of a professional critic. Tomorrow was Friday, the beginning of what I suspected would be a very interesting weekend. I opened a new document and began typing my next move. Friday morning brought the first phase of my counterattack. I'd spent most of the night crafting what I privately called the message, a carefully worded text that would seem innocent to anyone who didn't know the full context, but would hit Jessa like a guided missile. The beauty of the plan was its simplicity. Instead of confronting her directly, I was going to let her own social network do the heavy lifting. I waited until Jessa left for work, then pulled out her secret phone. The device felt toxic in my hands, like holding evidence of a crime. Which, in a way, I was. Scrolling through her message history with C, I found what I was looking for. A conversation from 2 weeks ago where they discussed their situation in detail. Jessa had written, Maya thinks we should be more careful. She's worried about people talking. But honestly, I'm tired of hiding. Life's too short to waste on someone who doesn't appreciate what they have. Perfect. I screenshotted the message, edited out Caleb's responses to make it seem like part of a larger conversation, and sent it to Maya's number, which I'd found in Jessa's regular phone contacts. The message I sent read, "Maya thinks we should be more careful. She's worried about people talking, but honestly, I'm tired of hiding. Life's too short to waste on someone who doesn't appreciate what they have. What do you think I should do?" To Maya, it would look like Jessa was asking for advice about some unnamed situation. But Maya would know exactly what situation Jessa was referring to. And Maya, being Maya, would share it with her entire social circle within hours. I sent the message at 10:23 a.m., then put the phone back in Jessa's purse and went to work like nothing had happened. The first sign that my plan was working came at lunch. I was at my desk, reviewing lease agreements, when my own phone buzzed with a text from Tom Bradley, a guy I played poker with occasionally. "Dude, is everything okay at home? Sarah heard some weird rumors." I stared at the message, feeling a mixture of satisfaction and nausea. The gossip network was already spreading the story, which meant Maya had done exactly what I'd predicted. I texted back, "What kind of rumors?" "Nothing specific. Just that Jessa might be going through some stuff. Sarah wanted to know if you needed anything." "Thanks for asking. We're working through some things, but we'll be fine." It was technically true. We were working through some things, just not together. Over the next few hours, I received similar messages from 3 other friends. Each one was carefully worded, fishing for information without seeming too nosy. The kind of messages people send when they've heard gossip, but don't want to admit they're spreading it. By 4 p.m., my phone was buzzing constantly. At 5:17, Jessa called. "Eli!" Her voice was tight with controlled panic. "We need to talk." "I'm at work. Now, this can't wait." "What's wrong?" "Just meet me at home, please." She hung up before I could respond. I took my time driving home, letting her stew in whatever crisis Maya had created. When I finally walked through the front door, I found Jessa pacing in the living room like a caged animal. "What the hell is going on?" she demanded. I hung up my jacket and loosened my tie, playing the part of a confused husband. "What do you mean?" "Maya called me today. She said I sent her some cryptic message about hiding and not being appreciated. She wanted to know if I was having problems with you." "Are you?" "That's not the point. I never sent her any message." I frowned, trying to look puzzled. "Maybe your phone got hacked?" "My phone didn't get hacked, Eli. Someone sent that message pretending to be me." "Who would do that?" She stared at me for a long moment, her eyes narrowing. "I don't know, but Maya forwarded it to half the book club. Now everyone thinks I'm having some kind of marital crisis." "Aren't you?" The question stopped her cold. She opened her mouth, then closed it, then opened it again, like a fish gasping for air. "What's that supposed to mean?" "I mean, you've been acting strange for months. Coming home late, taking mysterious phone calls, making lists about whether our marriage is worth saving. If people are talking, maybe it's because there's something to talk about." "You think I'm having an affair?" It wasn't a question. She said it flatly, like she was stating a fact. "I think," I said carefully, "that you've been distant. And now someone is sending fake messages in your name, which suggests that whatever is going on in your life has attracted attention." She sat down heavily on the couch, her face pale. "This is insane. Why would someone target me like this? Maybe they're not targeting you. Maybe they're targeting us." "What do you mean?" I sat down across from her, leaning forward like a concerned husband trying to solve a puzzle. "Think about it. Someone wants to cause problems in our marriage. They send a message designed to make you look guilty of something. Your friends start gossiping. We start fighting. Our relationship gets damaged. But who would want to hurt us?" I shrugged. "Could be anyone. Someone jealous of what we have. Someone with a grudge against you at work. Someone who gets entertainment from other people's drama." She was buying it. I could see the wheels turning in her head, trying to figure out who might be sabotaging her secret relationship without realizing that her secret relationship was the sabotage. "What should we do?" she asked. "We should be more careful, more private. If someone is watching us, looking for ammunition, we need to make sure we don't give them anything to work with." "You mean like not discussing our problems with other people?" "Exactly. Keep our business between us. Don't give the gossips any more material." She nodded slowly. That makes sense. What she didn't realize was that I'd just convinced her to isolate herself from her support network. Maya would be suspicious now, wondering why Jessa had sent such a strange message, and then denied it. Her other friends would be watching for signs of marital trouble, and Jessa, paranoid about being watched, would be less likely to confide in anyone. "There's something else," I said. "I think we should consider couples counseling." Counseling. If someone is trying to break us up, the best defense is to make our marriage stronger. Show them they're wasting their time. It was a brilliant move, even if I did say so myself. Couples counseling would force Jessa to either commit to working on our marriage or admit that she wanted out. Either way, it would put pressure on her relationship with Caleb. I need to think about it," she said. "Of course, but Jessa." I reached over and took her hand. "Whatever problems we're having, we can work through them, as long as we're honest with each other." She squeezed my hand, and for a moment I almost felt guilty about the elaborate game I was playing. Almost. "I love you," she said quietly. "I love you too." It was the first lie I'd told her directly. Everything else had been misdirection, selective truth-telling, strategic omissions. But this was a flat-out lie. I didn't love the woman sitting across from me. I didn't even know who she was anymore. That evening, while Jessa took a long bath to process everything, I checked the keylogger on her laptop. She'd been busy. 17 different websites, including several about cybersecurity and phone hacking. She was trying to figure out how someone could have sent that message from her phone. She'd also visited Caleb's business website and spent 12 minutes reading his bio and client testimonials, probably trying to figure out if he had enemies who might target his girlfriends. But the most interesting activity was a series of searches about dealing with stalkers and harassment in small towns. She was getting paranoid, which was exactly what I wanted. Paranoid people make mistakes, and when Jessa finally made her mistake, I'd be ready. I opened a new document and started planning Phase 2. The weekend was going to be very interesting. Saturday morning, Jessa announced she was going shopping with Maya, an obvious attempt to repair the damage from the mysterious text message. I encouraged her to go, playing the supportive husband who wanted his wife to maintain her friendships. What I didn't tell her was that I'd already spoken to Maya. I'd called her Friday night after Jessa had gone to bed. Maya loved drama almost as much as she loved being the first to know about it. So when Jessa's husband called asking for advice about some strange things happening in their marriage, she was more than willing to listen. "I'm worried about her," I'd said, using my most concerned husband voice. "She's been acting paranoid lately, claiming people are watching her, that someone is trying to sabotage our marriage. Yesterday she accused me of sending fake messages from her phone." "That's weird," Maya had said. "The message did seem kind of strange." "What message?" "The one about hiding and not being appreciated. She said she didn't send it, but it came from her number." "Maya, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Do you think Jessa might be having some kind of breakdown? The paranoia, the accusations, the strange behavior. I'm starting to worry about her mental health." There was a long pause. "I don't know, Eli. She has been acting different lately, more secretive, and she's been asking weird questions about divorce and property rights. I thought she was just going through a rough patch." But what? "But maybe it's more serious than I thought." I'd planted the seed perfectly. Now Maya would be watching Jessa for signs of instability, and anything strange Jessa said or did would be filtered through the lens of potential mental health issues. While Jessa was out shopping, I paid a visit to Mrs. Pretty. My elderly neighbor was in her garden, tending to her roses with the dedication of a surgeon. She looked up when I approached, her eyes bright with curiosity. "Eli, how nice to see you. How are things?" "Actually, Mrs. Pretty, I was hoping you might be able to help me with something." She set down her pruning shears immediately. Mrs. Pretty lived for moments like this, when she could be helpful and nosy at the same time. "Of course, dear. What do you need?" "I think someone might be watching our house. Jessa's been feeling like she's being followed, and yesterday someone sent fake messages from her phone. I'm wondering if you've noticed anyone strange in the neighborhood lately." Mrs. Pretty's eyes widened. "Oh my, that's terrible. Let me think." She launched into a detailed account of every car, delivery truck, and pedestrian she'd seen in the past week. Most of it was useless, the usual parade of neighbors, mail carriers, and service workers. But buried in her observations was exactly what I'd hoped to find. "There was that silver car," she said. "Expensive-looking thing. I've seen it parked across the street a few times, always in the evening. The driver just sits there, like he's waiting for something." "What kind of car?" "One of those German ones, Audi, I think. Very shiny." Perfect. I now had an independent witness who could place Caleb's car in our neighborhood. If I needed to build a case for harassment or stalking later, Mrs. Pretty would be invaluable. "That's very helpful," I said. "If you see it again, would you mind taking down the license plate number and maybe calling me?" "Of course. I'll keep my binoculars handy." Mrs. Pretty owned a pair of military-grade binoculars that she claimed were for birdwatching, but actually used for neighborhood surveillance. If Caleb showed up again, she'd document his visit better than a private detective. Jessa came home from shopping in a foul mood. Her expedition with Maya had clearly not gone as planned. "How was your day with Maya?" I asked. "Fine." She set her shopping bags down with more force than necessary. "She's being weird." "Weird how?" "Asking all these questions about how I'm feeling, whether I'm stressed, if I need to talk to someone, like she thinks I'm having some kind of breakdown." I made sympathetic noises while internally celebrating. Maya had taken the bait perfectly. "Maybe she's just worried about you. You have been under a lot of pressure lately." "I'm not having a breakdown, Eli." "I know that. But from the outside, all this paranoia about being watched and phones being hacked might seem concerning to people who don't understand the full situation." She stared at me for a moment, and I could see her trying to figure out if I was being supportive or subtly critical. "What full situation?" "Whatever is making you feel like you're being targeted. There must be a reason someone would want to mess with you." It was a perfect trap. Either she'd have to admit there was something in her life that might attract negative attention, or she'd have to claim the harassment was completely random, which would make her seem even more paranoid. She chose a third option: deflection. "I'm going to take a nap. This whole thing is giving me a headache." That evening, I implemented phase 2 of my plan. While Jessa was in the shower, I used her secret phone to send another message, this time directly to Caleb. "I think Eli knows something. He's been asking questions and acting suspicious. Maybe we should cool things down for a while. I don't want this to get messy." Then I deleted the message from the sent folder and put the phone back. 20 minutes later, Caleb called Jessa's regular phone. I was in the kitchen when it rang, and I could hear her talking in the bedroom, her voice low and urgent. The conversation lasted less than 5 minutes, but when she came downstairs, she looked shaken. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Wrong number," she said quickly. Another lie. They were piling up like snow in a blizzard. Sunday brought the next phase of my campaign. I'd spent Saturday night creating a fake social media account, complete with a generic profile photo and a plausible backstory. The account belonged to Jennifer Walsh, a recent divorcee who'd moved to town for a fresh start. Jennifer's first post was in a local Facebook group dedicated to community events and recommendations. She was asking for advice about dealing with a married woman who won't leave her husband alone, and wondering if anyone else had experienced problems with home-wrecking consultants from out of town. The post was carefully worded to seem like it was about someone else entirely, but anyone who knew about Jessa and Caleb would recognize the situation. I made sure to include just enough specific details: the silver Audi, the expensive condo, the pattern of targeting married women, to make it clear who I was talking about. Within hours, the post had 17 comments and had been shared 6 times. The local gossip network was more efficient than the internet. By Sunday evening, Jessa's phone was buzzing constantly with calls and texts from friends who'd seen the post. Each conversation left her more agitated and paranoid. "Someone is definitely targeting us," she said after hanging up from her 4th call of the evening. "Now there are posts online about our personal business." "What kind of posts?" She showed me Jennifer's Facebook post on her phone. I read it with the appropriate level of shock and outrage. "This is serious, Jessa. Someone is trying to destroy your reputation." "But why? What did I ever do to anyone?" I took her hands and looked directly into her eyes. "I think we need to consider the possibility that this isn't really about you." "What do you mean?" "I mean, what if someone is targeting me and you're just collateral damage? I've written some controversial articles over the years. Maybe I made an enemy." It was brilliant misdirection. By suggesting that she was an innocent victim of someone else's vendetta, I was simultaneously making her feel safer and more dependent on me for protection. "You really think so?" "It makes more sense than random harassment. And it would explain why they're trying to make it look like you're having an affair. They want to hurt me by destroying my marriage." She nodded slowly, buying into the narrative completely. "So what do we do?" "We stick together, don't let them drive a wedge between us, and we document everything, in case we need to involve the police." "The police?" "If this escalates to stalking or harassment, we might need legal protection." The mention of police made her face go pale. Guilty people hate the idea of law enforcement getting involved in their personal lives. "Maybe it won't come to that," she said quickly. "Maybe not. But Jessa, if there's anything at all, that you think might be relevant to this situation, you need to tell me. Even if it seems unimportant or embarrassing. We need to be completely honest with each other if we're going to get through this." She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see the internal struggle playing out on her face. Part of her wanted to confess, to tell me about Caleb and the affair and the divorce planning, but a bigger part of her was terrified of the consequences. "There's nothing," she said finally. "I can't think of anything that would make someone want to hurt us like this." "Okay, but if you remember anything, promise you'll tell me." "I promise." Another lie to add to the collection. That night, I lay in bed listening to Jessa toss and turn beside me. She was trapped now, caught between her guilt about the affair and her fear of the mysterious harassment campaign. Every move she made would be scrutinized, every conversation analyzed for hidden meaning. The pressure was building, and soon something would have to give. I was betting it would be her relationship with Caleb. A man like him didn't sign up for drama and complications. He wanted easy conquests and simple pleasures, not paranoid girlfriends and potential police investigations. When he finally abandoned her, she'd be left with nothing but her lies and her guilt, and I'd be there, playing the supportive husband, ready to help her pick up the pieces. The game was far from over, but I was winning. Monday morning brought the first crack in Jessa's facade. I found her in the kitchen at 5:30 a.m., still in her pajamas, staring at her phone with the intensity of someone trying to solve a complex equation. "Couldn't sleep?" I asked, pouring myself coffee from the pot she'd apparently made hours earlier. "Someone posted my photo online," she said without looking up. "Jennifer Walsh, whoever that is, shared a picture of me leaving the office and asked if anyone recognized the other woman." I looked over her shoulder at the phone screen, feigning shock at my own handiwork. The photo was one I'd taken during my parking lot surveillance, cropped and edited to remove any identifying background details. "This is escalating," I said. "We need to do something." "Like what?" "Like find out who Jennifer Walsh really is. This has gone beyond harassment. It's becoming cyberstalking." Jessa nodded frantically. "I tried looking her up, but the profile is obviously fake. Generic photos, no real personal information. We should report it to Facebook, and maybe contact that lawyer you mentioned." "What lawyer?" I paused, pretending to be confused. "You said you'd been researching our legal options for the harassment." "Right. Yes. The lawyer." She was flustered, caught between her real reason for consulting a divorce attorney and the fictional harassment case we were supposedly building. "Actually," I continued, "maybe we should meet with them together, present a united front, show whoever is doing this that they're not going to break us up." The color drained from her face. The last thing she wanted was to sit in a lawyer's office with her husband, discussing their marriage and legal strategies. I'm not sure that's necessary yet." "Jessa, someone is trying to destroy your reputation and our marriage. If that's not worth a lawyer consultation, what is?" She stared at her phone, trapped by her own lies. "Let me think about it." While she was at work, I escalated the pressure from another angle. Using the Jennifer Walsh account, I posted in 3 different local Facebook groups, each time with slightly different details but the same basic story. A married woman in town was having an affair with an out-of-town consultant, and the consultant had a pattern of targeting vulnerable wives. I was careful not to name names directly, but I included enough specific details that anyone who knew Jessa would recognize the situation. The silver Audi, the expensive condo at Harbor View, the tech company connection. By lunchtime, the posts had been shared dozens of times and generated hundreds of comments. The local gossip network was in full overdrive, with people speculating about identities and sharing their own stories about suspicious consultants and cheating spouses. At 2:47 p.m., my phone rang. It was Benji. "Dude, you need to get down here," he said. "Like, now." "What's wrong?" "Your wife's boyfriend just walked into my bar and he looks like he's ready to start a fight." I was there in 10 minutes. Caleb was sitting at the far end of the bar, nursing what looked like his 3rd whiskey and glaring at everyone who walked in. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, his expensive suit wrinkled. He looked like a man whose carefully constructed world was falling apart. I took a seat 3 stools away and ordered a beer. "Rough day?" I asked conversationally. He turned to look at me, his eyes slightly unfocused from the alcohol. "Do I know you?" "Eliot March. I think you know my wife." For a moment, I thought he might take a swing at me. His hands clenched into fists, and his jaw tightened. But then something shifted in his expression, calculation, replacing anger. "Your wife is a very troubled woman," he said carefully. "How so?" "Paranoid. Unstable. She's been sending me bizarre messages, accusing me of things I never did. I think she might need professional help." It was a decent strategy. Paint Jessa as mentally unstable to deflect attention from their affair. But he'd made one crucial mistake. He'd just admitted they'd been in contact. "What kind of messages?" I asked. "Rambling nonsense about being watched and followed. Claims that someone is trying to ruin her life. She seems to think I'm involved somehow." "Are you?" He laughed bitterly. "I'm a business consultant. I helped her company streamline their HR processes. That's the extent of our relationship." "Then why are you drinking alone in a bar at 3 in the afternoon?" "Because your wife has been harassing me, calling at all hours, showing up at my building, sending threatening messages. I'm considering filing a restraining order." I almost admired his audacity. He was trying to flip the script, make himself the victim, and Jessa the aggressor. It was exactly what a guilty man would do when his affair started attracting unwanted attention. "That's interesting," I said, "because according to some posts I've seen online, you have a pattern of getting involved with married women." His face went white. What posts? I pulled out my phone and showed him Jennifer Walsh's Facebook activity. Seems like someone else has had problems with a consultant who drives a silver Audi and targets vulnerable wives. He stared at the screen, his hands shaking slightly. This is defamation. Whoever posted this could be sued. Could they? I mean, if it's true, it's not really defamation, is it? It's not true. So you're saying you've never had an affair with a married woman? I'm saying whoever is posting this stuff is trying to destroy my reputation and my business. Funny, that's exactly what my wife said about the harassment she's been experiencing. He finished his whiskey and stood up, throwing a 20 on the bar. Stay away from me, both of you. If either of you contact me again, I'm calling the police. We'll be sure to stay away from your building, I said. Wouldn't want to accidentally run into you there. He stormed out without another word. Benji slid over to my end of the bar. What the hell was that about? Just a misunderstanding, I said, but I think it's been cleared up. That evening, Jessa came home in a state of barely controlled panic. Her hands were shaking as she poured herself a glass of wine, her second of the day, judging by the bottle level. Bad day? I asked. Someone at work showed me those Facebook posts. Everyone knows they're about me. How can you be sure? Because the details are too specific. The consultant, the tech company, the silver car, it's obviously about me and… She stopped herself before saying Caleb's name. And what? And the consulting project. People are making assumptions. What kind of assumptions? She took a large gulp of wine. That I was having an inappropriate relationship with one of the consultants. Were you? The question hung in the air between us like a loaded weapon. This was her chance to come clean, to confess everything, and try to salvage what was left of our marriage. Instead, she lied. Of course not. But you know how people talk. Once a rumor gets started, maybe you should talk to the consultant. Ask him to make a statement clearing up any misunderstandings. I can't do that. Why not? Because it would look suspicious, like we were coordinating our stories. It was actually a smart answer, but it came too quickly. She'd already thought through this scenario, which meant she'd been planning damage control strategies. So what's your plan? I don't know. Maybe I should take some time off work, let things cool down. Running away won't solve anything. I'm not running away, I'm being strategic. Or you could fight back. Hire a private investigator to find out who Jennifer Walsh really is. Sue her for defamation. Show everyone that you have nothing to hide. The suggestion terrified her. The last thing she wanted was a private investigator digging into her personal life. That seems extreme. Someone is destroying your reputation with lies, and you think fighting back is extreme. I need to think. What's there to think about? Either the accusations are true or they're not. If they're not true, we fight them. If they are… I let the sentence hang unfinished. They're not true, she said quickly. Then we fight. She stared into her wine glass, trapped by her own deceptions. Every option I presented would either expose her affair or force her to maintain increasingly complex lies. There's something else, I said. Mrs. Pretty called today. She's been keeping an eye on the neighborhood like I asked, and she's seen that silver Audi parked across the street several times. Always in the evening. Always with someone sitting inside. Jessa went completely still. What? She thinks whoever is harassing you might be conducting physical surveillance, watching our house. That's terrifying. It's also evidence. If we can catch them in the act, we can identify them and press charges. No. The word came out sharper than she'd intended. I mean, I don't want to escalate this. What if it makes them angry? What if they do something worse? What could be worse than what they're already doing? She couldn't answer that question without admitting that there were secrets in her life that could be exposed, relationships that could be revealed, lies that could be uncovered. I'm going to bed, she said. I have a headache. After she went upstairs, I sat in my office and reviewed the day's progress. Caleb was rattled, probably reconsidering his involvement with a married woman who came with so much drama. Jessa was isolated, paranoid, and running out of options. The local gossip network was in full swing, making it impossible for either of them to move freely without attracting attention. The pressure was building toward a breaking point. Soon, one of them would crack. My money was on Caleb. Men like him were predators, not fighters. When the situation became too complicated or risky, he'd cut his losses and move on to easier prey. And when he abandoned Jessa, she'd be left with nothing but her guilt and her lies and a husband who seemed completely devoted to protecting her from mysterious harassers. The irony was perfect. I opened a new document and began planning the final phase of my campaign. It was time to force their hand. Tuesday brought the call I'd been waiting for. Jessa's phone rang at 11:23 a.m. while she was in the shower, and the caller ID showed C, Caleb's number from her secret phone. I let it ring. When she emerged from the bathroom, wrapped in a towel and looking frazzled, she immediately checked her missed calls. "Everything okay?" I asked from the bedroom doorway. "Spam call," she said quickly, but I could see the panic in her eyes. The phone rang again 5 minutes later. This time she answered it in the closet, her voice a urgent whisper. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was clear. She was trying to calm someone down, reassure them, convince them of something. The conversation lasted less than 3 minutes. When she came out of the closet, fully dressed but visibly shaken, I was sitting on the bed reading the newspaper. "Work emergency?" I asked without looking up. "Something like that." "You look upset." "It's just office politics, you know how it is." I folded the newspaper and studied her face. "Jessa, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be completely honest." She froze. "What? Are you in some kind of trouble? Real trouble, not just the online harassment stuff?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, you've been acting terrified for days. Not just annoyed or frustrated, genuinely scared, like you're afraid of something specific happening." She sat down on the edge of the bed, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. For a moment, I thought she might finally tell me the truth. "I'm scared of losing everything," she said quietly. "Everything like what?" "My job, my reputation, my marriage." "Why would you lose those things?" "Because of the lies people are spreading, because of the assumptions they're making." "But if they're just lies and assumptions, they can't really hurt you, can they?" She looked at me with something that might have been desperation. "You'd be surprised how much damage lies can do." "Then maybe it's time to tell the truth." "What truth?" "Whatever truth you're so afraid of people discovering." We stared at each other across the space of our king-sized bed, and I could see her internal struggle playing out in real time. Part of her wanted to confess, to end the deception and deal with the consequences, but a bigger part of her was still hoping she could find a way out without losing everything. "There's nothing to tell," she said finally. "Okay, but Jessa, if that changes, if you remember something or realize there's information that might be relevant, you need to let me know immediately. We're supposed to be partners." "I know. Because I'm on your side. Whatever problems we're facing, we face them together." She nodded, but tears were starting to form in her eyes. "I love you," she whispered. "I love you too." The lie came easier each time I told it. After Jessa left for work, I put the final phase of my plan into motion. Using the Jennifer Walsh account, I posted what I called the ultimatum in the largest local Facebook group. Update: I've been getting messages from people who recognize the situation I described earlier. Apparently, this isn't the first time this particular consultant has targeted married women in small towns. I've decided to go public with names and details unless the harassment stops immediately. The people involved know who they are. They have 48 hours to make this right, or I start naming names. This has gone on long enough. The post was shared 37 times within the first hour. At 2:15 p.m., my phone rang. It was Jessa, calling from work. Eli, you need to see the latest Facebook post. This Jennifer person is threatening to release names. What names? The people she thinks are involved in whatever she thinks is happening. So? If you're not involved in anything, what do you care? Because people will assume I'm involved. The details she's posted make it obvious she's talking about me. Then maybe it's time to contact a lawyer. Sue her for harassment and defamation. I can't do that. Why not? There was a long pause. Because what if she has information? What if she knows something that could be taken out of context? What kind of information? I don't know. Photos, conversations, anything that could be misinterpreted. She was spiraling, caught between her fear of exposure and her inability to explain why exposure would be damaging without admitting her guilt. Jessa, listen to me. If you haven't done anything wrong, then there's nothing she can expose that would hurt you. And if you have done something wrong, then maybe it's time to get ahead of the story. I haven't done anything wrong. Then we fight. We hire the best lawyer we can afford, and we destroy this Jennifer Walsh person. We make an example of her. No lawyers, no fighting. I need to think. She hung up before I could respond. At 4:33 p.m., Mrs. Pretty called. Eli, dear, you asked me to watch for that silver car? Well, it's back. But this time, the driver got out. What did he look like? Tall, well-dressed, silver hair, very agitated. He stood across the street staring at your house for about 10 minutes, then got back in his car and left. Did you get the license plate? Of course, I wrote it down. Should I call the police? Not yet, but keep that number safe. We might need it. Caleb was cracking. The Facebook posts, the gossip, the threat of public exposure. It was all too much for a man who was used to operating in shadows. At 6:47 p.m., Jessa came home looking like she'd been through a war. Her makeup was smeared, her hair disheveled, her hands shaking. We need to talk, she said. Okay. Not here. Somewhere private, away from the house. Why? Because I think someone might be listening. The paranoia was complete now. She was so terrified of exposure that she was seeing threats everywhere. Where do you want to go? The park, the one by the lake. We drove in silence, Jessa checking her mirrors constantly, convinced we were being followed. The park was nearly empty, just a few joggers and dog walkers enjoying the evening air. We sat on a bench overlooking the water, and for several minutes neither of us spoke. I've made some mistakes, she said finally. My heart rate spiked, but I kept my voice calm. What kind of mistakes? The kind that could ruin everything. Are you talking about an affair? She flinched like I'd slapped her. How did you... Lucky guess. The secret phone calls, the late nights, the paranoia about being exposed. It all points to the same thing. She started crying then, deep, wrenching sobs that shook her entire body. I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to happen. How long? 4 months. Who is he? Caleb Rains, the consultant from my work. I nodded like I was hearing this information for the first time. Are you in love with him? I thought I was. But now I don't know what I was thinking. What changed? All this harassment stuff. He thinks I'm behind it somehow. He thinks I'm trying to force him to leave his wife or something. He's married? She nodded miserably. He told me he was divorced, but I found out last week that he's still married. His wife lives in Boston. So Caleb was cheating on his wife with my wife, who thought she was the only woman in his life. The layers of deception were almost impressive. What does he want you to do? End it. Disappear. He says if the harassment doesn't stop, he's going to tell everyone that I've been stalking him. And have you been? No, but I did go to his apartment a few times when he didn't return my calls, and I did send some messages that could be misinterpreted if taken out of context. What kind of messages? Desperate ones, asking why he was ignoring me, begging him to talk to me. The kind of messages that would make me look obsessed if anyone saw them. She was trapped in a web of her own making, caught between her guilt about the affair and her fear of being painted as an unstable stalker. So, what do you want to do? I want to end it, completely. Never see him again, never contact him again. Just pretend it never happened. And us? She looked at me through her tears. Do you think you can forgive me? I pretended to consider the question. I don't know. This is a lot to process. I understand. But Eli, I need you to know that I never stopped loving you. This thing with Caleb, it wasn't about love. It was about feeling wanted, feeling attractive, feeling like someone saw me as more than just a wife and employee. And now? Now I realize how stupid I was, how much I risked for something that was never real. I took her hand, playing the part of a husband trying to decide whether to forgive or walk away. What about the divorce lawyer? Her face went white. How did you know about that? I didn't. Until just now. She closed her eyes, realizing she'd just confessed to something I hadn't even accused her of. I was scared, she said. When the harassment started, when people began talking, I thought you might leave me. I wanted to know what my options were. And what are your options? I don't want options. I want my marriage. I want my husband. I want to forget this whole nightmare ever happened. I squeezed her hand. That's going to be difficult with all the gossip and online posts. I know, but maybe if we just ignore it, it will die down. Or maybe it will get worse. Jennifer Walsh is threatening to release names and details. If she does, everyone will know. Then what do you think we should do? I looked out over the lake, pretending to wrestle with a difficult decision. In reality, I was savoring the moment, my cheating wife begging for forgiveness, completely dependent on my mercy and protection. We fight, I said finally. Together, we hire a lawyer, we track down this Jennifer Walsh person, and we make sure she can never hurt us again. You really think that will work? I think it's our only option. Unless you want to spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder waiting for the other shoe to drop. She nodded slowly. Okay. We fight. But Jessa, no more lies, no more secrets. If we're going to get through this, I need to know everything. I've told you everything. Have you? What about the secret phone? Her face crumpled. You know about that too? I know about a lot of things. The question is whether you're going to keep pretending I don't. She pulled the prepaid phone out of her purse and handed it to me. There's nothing recent on it, just old messages from when it was happening. I scrolled through the message history, pretending to read it for the first time. The explicit photos, the romantic promises, the detailed plans for secret meetings. It was all there, documented evidence of my wife's betrayal. This is pretty damning, I said. I know, but it's over. I swear to you, it's over. I looked at her tear-streaked face, her desperate eyes, her trembling hands. She was completely broken, utterly dependent on my forgiveness and protection. It was exactly where I wanted her. Okay, I said. We'll figure this out. Together. She threw her arms around me, sobbing with relief. Thank you. Thank you for giving me another chance. I held her close, stroking her hair, whispering reassurances, playing the part of the forgiving husband while planning her complete destruction. The game was almost over, but I had one final move to make. The next morning, I told Jessa I was taking a personal day to research lawyers and investigate the Jennifer Walsh situation. What I actually did was drive to Harborview Condos for a final confrontation with Caleb Rains. I found him in the parking garage, loading suitcases into his silver Audi. He looked like a man preparing to flee town, which, based on the quantity of luggage, was exactly what he was doing. Going somewhere? I asked. He spun around, his face a mixture of anger and fear. "What are you doing here?" "Thought we should have a conversation, man to man. We have nothing to talk about." "I disagree. See, my wife told me everything last night. About the affair, about your threats to paint her as a stalker, about your married status that you forgot to mention to her." He slammed the trunk shut. "Your wife is unstable. She's been harassing me for weeks." "Funny thing about that. I did some research on you, Caleb. Turns out you've left a trail of unstable women in 3 different states. All married, all middle management, all mysteriously developing stalker tendencies right around the time you disappear from town." His jaw tightened. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you do. It's your pattern. Target lonely wives, promise them a better life, get them emotionally dependent, then vanish when things get complicated. Leave them looking like crazy women who imagined the whole relationship. You can't prove any of that." I pulled out my phone and showed him a screenshot. "Actually, I can. Turns out one of your previous victims kept very detailed records. Photos, messages, hotel receipts. She's been trying to warn other women about you for months." It was a complete lie, but he didn't know that. His face went pale as he stared at the fake screenshot I'd created. "What do you want?" "I want you to disappear. Permanently. No contact with my wife, no attempts to discredit her, no parting shots designed to make her look unstable. You just vanish, and we pretend this never happened." "And if I don't?" "Then I make sure your wife in Boston gets copies of every message you sent to mine, along with the photos and the hotel records, and a detailed timeline of your affair." He was trapped, and he knew it. His entire operation depended on secrecy and his ability to control the narrative. If his wife found out about his pattern of affairs, his comfortable life would collapse. "You're bluffing." I scrolled through Jessa's secret phone, showing him the explicit photos she'd sent. "Am I?" "Because I have everything, Caleb. Every message, every photo, every promise you made. Your wife might be very interested to see what her husband does on his business trips." He stared at the phone screen, his hands clenched into fists. "You sick bastard. You've been watching us the whole time." "I've been protecting my marriage. There's a difference." "She came to me. She pursued me." "I don't care. The affair is over. You're leaving town, and you're never contacting her again. Those are the terms." "And what about the online harassment? The Facebook posts?" I smiled. "What about them?" "You're behind it, aren't you? This whole Jennifer Walsh thing, it's you." "That's a very serious accusation. Do you have any proof?" He studied my face, looking for confirmation. "You orchestrated this entire thing. The harassment, the gossip, the paranoia. All of it designed to drive us apart. If that were true, it would make me pretty clever, wouldn't it? It makes you psychotic. It makes me a husband who doesn't like sharing his wife." We stared at each other across the parking garage, 2 men who understood exactly what the other was capable of. "The posts stop when I leave town?" he asked. "The posts stop when you leave town and stay gone. If you ever contact my wife again, if you ever come back to Maine, if you ever even think about her, the posts will be the least of your problems." He nodded slowly. "You win." I wasn't playing a game, Caleb. I was protecting what's mine. He got into his Audi without another word and drove away. I watched until his car disappeared around the corner, then walked back to my own vehicle. One problem solved, one to go. I spent the afternoon creating a final Jennifer Walsh post. Update. The harassment has stopped. The people involved have made it right. I won't be posting any names or details. Sometimes the threat of exposure is enough to make people do the right thing. Thanks to everyone who supported me through this difficult time. Then I deleted the Jennifer Walsh account entirely, erasing all evidence of my social media campaign. When Jessa came home that evening, I was waiting in the living room with 2 glasses of wine and a carefully composed expression. "We need to celebrate," I said. "Celebrate what?" "I found Jennifer Walsh, and I convinced her to stop. Jessa's face went white. You found her? How? Private investigator. Cost us $3,000, but it was worth it. What did you find out? I handed her a wine glass and sat down beside her on the couch. She's the ex-wife of a man Caleb Raines had an affair with in Vermont. When her marriage fell apart, she started tracking his movements, warning other women about him. It was a plausible lie, close enough to the truth to be believable, but far enough from reality to protect my secret. She was targeting you because of your relationship with Caleb. She thought you were another victim who needed to be warned. But I was a victim. I know that. And when I explained the situation to her, that you'd already ended the affair and were trying to save your marriage, she agreed to stop the harassment campaign. Jessa started crying again, but this time it was relief rather than fear. It's really over? It's really over. She deleted all the posts and promised never to contact you again. What about Caleb? What about him? Is he going to cause problems? Try to make me look like a stalker? I pretended to consider the question. I don't think so. According to the investigator, he left town this morning, probably realized the situation was getting too complicated. He's gone? He's gone. You'll never see him again. She collapsed against me, sobbing with relief. I can't believe it's over. I thought my life was ruined. It's not ruined. Damaged, maybe, but not ruined. We can fix this. Can we? Can you really forgive me? I stroked her hair, holding her close. I can try. It won't be easy, and it won't happen overnight, but I'm willing to work on it if you are. I am. I swear I am. Then we start over. Clean slate. No more secrets, no more lies. No more secrets, she agreed. I smiled into her hair, savoring the irony. She thought she was getting a fresh start, a chance to rebuild our marriage. What she was actually getting was a lifetime of being married to a man who knew every detail of her betrayal and had orchestrated her complete humiliation. Every time she looked at me, she'd remember that I'd forgiven her when I could have destroyed her. Every time we made love, she'd think about how merciful I'd been. Every time we fought, she'd remember that she was the one who'd broken our marriage vows. She'd spend the rest of her life trying to earn forgiveness I'd never actually given, grateful for mercy I'd never actually shown. It was perfect revenge, not a single devastating blow, but a lifetime of subtle psychological torture disguised as forgiveness and love. I love you, she whispered. I love you too, I lied. And in that moment, I realized something that surprised me. I was telling the truth, not about loving her. That emotion had been completely destroyed by her betrayal, but about the deeper truth underneath the lie. I loved this. The control, the manipulation, the complete psychological dominance. I loved knowing that I'd won so completely that she didn't even realize she'd lost. I loved being the kind of man who could orchestrate such perfect, invisible revenge. Jessa fell asleep in my arms that night, exhausted by weeks of fear and paranoia. I lay awake beside her, planning our future together. A future where she'd never know that her loving, forgiving husband was actually her most dedicated enemy. The game was over. I'd won everything. And the best part was, she'd never know she'd been playing. 6 months later, we renewed our wedding vows in a small ceremony at the local church. Jessa had suggested it, a symbol of our fresh start, our commitment to rebuilding what had been broken. I agreed enthusiastically. Mrs. Pretty was there, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue and telling everyone who would listen about how romantic it was that we'd worked through our problems. Maya was there too, playing the role of supportive best friend, though I could see the questions in her eyes. She still didn't understand what had really happened during those chaotic weeks of harassment and gossip. Benji served as my best man, raising a toast about second chances and the power of forgiveness. He meant every word, having no idea that the man he was celebrating had orchestrated the entire crisis. Jessa looked beautiful in her new dress, White silk, modest cut, nothing like the red dress she'd worn for another man. She cried during the ceremony, overwhelmed by gratitude for my mercy and love. I cried too, not from emotion, but from the sheer perfection of the moment. As we exchanged new rings and promised to love, honor, and cherish each other, I thought about Caleb Rains. According to my research, he'd moved to Florida and was already working his way into another small town's social scene. Some other husband would have to deal with him now. I thought about the Jennifer Walsh account, deleted but not forgotten. The skills I'd developed during that campaign, social media manipulation, psychological warfare, strategic deception, were tools I'd keep sharp, just in case I ever needed them again. But mostly, I thought about the woman standing beside me, promising to be faithful and honest for the rest of her life. She meant every word, having learned the hard way what deception could cost her. What she didn't know was that her husband had learned something too. That revenge wasn't about destruction or punishment. It was about control. Complete, invisible, permanent control. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the minister said. Again. Everyone laughed at the small joke. I kissed my wife, tasting salt from her grateful tears, and smiled for the cameras. The perfect husband, the forgiving man, the winner of a game no one else had even realized was being played. As we walked back down the aisle together, Jessa squeezed my hand and whispered, "Thank you for giving us another chance." "Thank you for being worth it," I whispered back. It wasn't a lie this time. She was worth it. Worth the planning, the manipulation, the months of careful psychological warfare. She was worth the most perfect revenge I'd ever conceived, and she'd never, ever know.